Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. Today's Thriver TV episode is a very serious topic, and it's a conversation that not many people are having out there because it's such a delicate conversation. But I really want to have this episode with you and share this with you because I know that there are many people in this community that are suffering from that fear, the possibility that their beloved child is in fact a narcissist and beyond help. And sometimes tragically, even though we don't divorce our children, and we really can't, at some point, because of their atrocious behaviour that doesn't change, it may end up being the healthiest thing for you and your loved ones to say no more to their behaviour. And I know that this is a devastating conclusion for some of you, yet for others it may not be too late. There may be hope. And I just want to start off with this disclaimer that please know myself and no one else can offer the magic cure for narcissism, because unless that person shifts in a wanting to work on their inner traumas and fractures that were responsible for the submerging of their true self and the assigning of a false one, then they can't come back from that condition. Or if there is still enough of a true self left to reactivate, as was the case when I worked on my inner being regarding Zach, my son. And I talked about that in a recent Thriver TV episode, which was called Co-Parenting with a Narcissist, the Foundation. And in that case, even if they don't choose to work on themselves, it is possible for someone else to create and hold the energetic space for their true self to come back to life, to co-generate their healing. And you can see a lot more of that in that episode that I did about myself and my son. I really suggest that you go to it if you haven't seen it already. My heart goes out to you if you are suffering from the horror of a child being narcissistic, because as a parent, I really can't imagine what that would be like. I can't even probably get my head around it, apart from the brush that I had with it when my son Zach was an addict and he was acting extremely narcissistically. And, you know, truly at that time, I had no idea whether or not he was going to come home to himself, and he did. And it happened at 19 years of age, and it happened very quickly when I did the quantum work on myself regarding him. So, you know, again, if you are fearful that your child is a narcissist and you want to know if there's something you can do, please watch that Thriver TV episode as well as this one. Okay, so back to this one. Before we go into what you can do if your child is acting narcissistically, or even if he or she is a narcissist, I want to have a talk about where narcissism comes from. Because I know a lot of you may be blaming yourself and you're feeling terrible that your own child has turned out like this. And many people ask the question whether narcissism is created from nurture or nature, meaning programmed as a child or being born with a condition. And they also wonder which of these manifestations are treatable, if any of them are treatable. Epigenetics now proves to us that trauma is passed on from generation to generation. And trauma is definitely responsible, as it is for any dysfunction in anyone's life. Narcissism is a condition whereby the true self is too stunted, underdeveloped, or damaged to feel like it has life in hand, and is therefore repressed or divorced or completely disowned, and a false, needy, insecure, egoic self takes over with that person. Ego is a defense mechanism that's born from fear and separation. It's not our true self. Ego is energized from trauma, the faulty programs and fear and pain that is contrary to a true, empowered, whole inner being. I believe that genetically the trauma of an emotionally broken parent, such as a narcissist and or a codependent, who is someone who doesn't feel whole and solid on the inside and tries to get love, approval, survival and security from the outside, is passed on down the line from generation to generation until someone in that line heals the trauma. Then chemically, alchemically, at a DNA level, a shift occurs along that genetic line, including for our children, those existing and those yet to be born. However, when that has not taken place, the child with the predisposition to defences and fractures that acquired from inherited trauma is born into the exact environment representing that trauma, because his or her parents haven't healed from that trauma yet. And because of the predisposition of the trauma programming and the environment that's activating that trauma, this child is likely to either develop narcissism, which means I will control my environment in any way necessary in order to try to feel safe and whole. Or as a codependent, I will try to please others and be what they want me to be to try to feel whole and safe. Or may even gravitate between the two. Both of these states are unconscious. And if we remain unconscious, then life and relationships with self and others is not going to work as a narcissist or a codependent. And that's what these children are facing. Being codependent and narcissistic as little people, which all children are dependent and self-absorbed, and never having grown these underdeveloped parts up to wholeness and solidness. But please know this, every inner being or soul composition that has not been totally polluted by the personality to the point of no return can return at any age, because fundamentally underneath the trauma is a being who already knows how to be whole. It's a coded cellular truth within all of us. And this is what, as adults, as thrivers, we discovered when we cleared our trauma. We discovered this, that we did not have to learn how to be whole, regardless of whether that was modeled to us or not. We just became organically whole. And I promise you, if trauma starts shifting out from your children's inner being, if they've not passed the point of no return, then they will return to wholeness, just as my son Zach did. The thing is, we can't make our children do the work and release and shift their trauma. They may be way too young or simply have no desire to. We can't even hope to take them to a psychologist and force them to get help, no matter what age they are. Because the more we try to make anyone do anything so that we can feel better, including our own children, the more they will push back and refuse to. No one gets better for anyone else. People only genuinely get better because they internally decide to. This doesn't mean that if your children are too young to make that choice, then there is no hope. An internal decision, a shift, could come about for them as a result of you holding the space for them, causing their inner being to reignite and win over the malfunctioning personality, which is the ego. Because where your energy as a parent goes, your children follow. With you as the role model, you can lead the way for a child exhibiting narcissistic traits. There are three main things about this that are necessary for you to do. And you really have to, they really do have to operate in conjunction with each other. The first is shifting out of yourself regularly, as often as you can. All of the trauma you feel about the ex-narcissist, the narcissistic stuff your child throws at you, and all other triggers you have regarding abuse, feeling powerless, feeling angry, hurt, distressed, or whatever it is. And please know you are not doing this so that you will feel nothing and then allow your child's bad behaviour. Rather, you are doing this so that you will not be the other half of the magnet that feeds the narcissistic behaviour, which feed and pain does like blood to a shark. And so that you can show up as calm and solid on the inside, which is your most powerful position. Because being triggered means we regress back into our wounds, we hand power away, and then we're only going to experience more from this child that represents our as yet unhealed wounds, which generally with our children comes down to the heartbreak of not being loved and respected by the people we love. Meaning we need to shore up and heal our original childhood wounds of not feeling loved and respected and become a self-partnering source of loving and respecting ourselves. Our children hurting us are some of the biggest and most powerful gristy bits that we will ever experience to get our own personal healing and evolution done. So next, we need to let go of lecturing and prescribing and trying to force them to get it, and instead have healthy boundaries in place. Boundaries that teach consequences. And how we do this is we let our children slip, fall, and do the time. We stop bailing them out, fixing, pleading, arguing, and interfering. And our action is based on creating truth from our own inner being level, the truth of loving and respecting ourselves. Because when we anchor into the truth of treating ourselves honourably, we are in a position to honour everyone else as well. And I'm going to give you a couple of personal examples, and please don't think for one moment I was a model parent. I certainly wasn't. And Zach was an adult living out of home by the time I really learnt this stuff. However, there were some things I started learning regarding boundaries and getting out of codependent tendencies. Things about modelling and teaching limits, the handling and accepting of disappointment, and taking responsibility. These are vital keys children with narcissistic traits need to experience to start coming out of narcissism. So the first example is Zach used to skip cricket training. He was captain and he narcissistically believed, why go? I'm entitled to open the batting because I'm the best batsman. And I used to argue, I used to threaten, I used to get angry, and I tried to guilt him into going because it went totally against my integrity not to go to training. It really did. However, when I learnt healthy boundaries that honoured me, I stopped putting myself through that stress. Instead, I let Zach make his choice without argument, and then I had a discussion with his coach who decided to bench him the next game. So Zach was on the bench playing Orange Boy. Zach was distraught. He went crazy about it, but I let it happen and I didn't get pulled into the drama. I knew it was a divine experience for him. Zach learnt. He never reneged on training again. Another thing he did was he used to not fill his car with petrol, and then he'd insist that I would drop him off and pick him up from work. And I used to enable this behaviour because I was worried about him losing his job. I stopped that. I refused. No matter how much he yelled at me, I smiled and walked away, didn't argue, and I left him with it. So he ended up having to ring a friend, he got a lift, and then he never did it again. And these were not just some of the massive breakthroughs for him at that time, they were huge breakthroughs for me, coming out of my codependent, over-involvement, fixing and controlling tendencies. Healthy boundaries can also mean we don't engage with our child unless they speak to us decently. And rather than get all bent out of shape because they don't, we can model to them that our energy detaches from them and it's fine regardless. So we demonstrate by action, this is the level you need to meet me at. I am that level. This is where I'm at. And the truth is, it's going to be really tough if your child is narcissistic. Your child is going to try to derail you, guilt you, get you to give in, shame you, blame you, throw everything at you to try to get you to hand your power over so that they don't need to change. And this is where the development of yourself is essential. Holding your space and shifting yourself on the inside, just as I did regarding Zach, to know in every fibre of your being that your child will awaken and come into their true self, no matter what it looks like on the outside. I was lucky for the 3 weeks that I worked on my inner being day and night regarding Zach. He was out of home. I didn't have him in my face pushing me. So I do know, please, I realise I could only imagine how difficult it would be day to day when they're there with you. However, as difficult as it is possible. Many thrivers in this community have achieved it. You can shift your energy at night when your child is in bed, when they're at school, and every time you make the time to do this on your own. And it's really important. And if we care about our children, which of course we do, it's vital. It's in fact the only thing I know that creates miraculous change. Also, what is hugely important is that your child knows you love them and that you believe in him or her. And if you can say calmly to them, that's okay, I know you're going to work it out. I love you and I believe in you. I know you're going to find your way. That child has a much better chance at getting well than if you convey messages laced with how hopeless, wrong and bad they are. This is intensely damaging for any child, including one with narcissistic tendencies. We cannot shame and blame our child back to health any more than we could critique and abuse our own inner being back to health. And of course, that was the critical parent stuff we grew up with. It doesn't work. Ultimately, please know if your child is past the point of no return, you have to honour you. Shift the pain and trauma out about this and hold love in your heart for them and stand by your choices to honour you, because that is your greatest soul mission. And there are people in this community who ultimately had to go no contact or strict modified contact with their children. And many of these NARPers have reached peace as a result of having shifting into the knowing of what I believe also. This is a deep spiritual thing that I believe, that a soul polluted by a personality, by a narcissistic egoic takeover, will be reabsorbed back to oneness and love when they get to the end of the line, when there is no more possibility of evolution for that soul. And then it gets to start out again as a new soul. That's what I believe. And I had an amazing experience in Life Between Lives where I saw the evidence of that and knew it in every cell of my being. And these parents that have had to let go of their children have worked very hard at freeing themselves so that they stand up into their evolution to be the next best versions of self, healing, evolving and expanding, regardless of what their child's soul journey is. And I find it very beautiful and comforting, as these parents have, that the most damaged souls in universal oneness end up going back to love. They get the most love. Everyone's going home to love because there is nowhere else to go. So more understanding of this, if you want to go from this topic here, you can have a look at my article, which is The Soul Contract with a Narcissist. Google my name, Soul Contract with a Narcissist, because I know that if you're struggling with narcissistic children, it will give you comfort. Okay, so that's it for this, precious and serious topic. So come over to the blog.melanietoniaevans.com, and let's continue the conversation there. And as always, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.